The Honourable the Minister for the Status of Women and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy to say, I got to say, this is the first time I've ever seen women's issues raised as prominently as they have been for this sitting. So I'm happy to see that, and to thank the honourable member, of course. As we know, and pay equity has certainly been the topic of conversation throughout this setting. And I'm happy to say, I mean, work continues. It's across government. The Department of Justice is involved. The Department of Treasury Board is involved. Of course, Women and Gender Equality, the Labour Division. So something that is ongoing, but I also want to remind the honourable member that simple pay equity legislation is not a silver bullet that's going to change or solve overnight the gender wage gap, and that's the unfortunate. I think everybody's missing the definition. I encourage everybody to certainly read up on the definitions of pay equity and the gender wage gap. But what's important is that we're doing concrete things to get women back into the workforce and to negotiate.
Thank you. The Minister for Status of Women and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again, and I will read this into the record, of course, for the honourable member. Newfoundland and Labrador has reactive pay equity legislation in place, and it's via the Labour Standards Act and the Human Rights Act. The Human Rights Act is a complaints-based legislation that prohibits discrimination in employment, including pay, rates, and gender. So there certainly are recourses that can be taken here in this province. And again, as my honourable colleague said, there is no discrimination for wages in the public service. And I will say the onus is on everyone, private sector, public sector, across Newfoundland and Labrador, and the country for that matter, to do what we can to help close the gender wage gap, because the gender wage gap is what the member's referring to. It's not pay equity. Pay equity is not the silver bullet and will not make the gender wage gap close overnight. We all know that. We see that here in Newfoundland and Labrador, Quebec, Ontario, and across the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.